After Austria's defeat in 1809, Napoleon once again dominated Europe. Alexander remained his ally. Austria became another ally through Napoleon's marriage to Marie-Louise, the daughter of the Austrian emperor. French troops continued to occupy Prussia. Germany was apportioned among loyal princes and former French generals. The only war that remained for France was the Spanish ulcer, which Napoleon preferred to ignore. Gradually, however, Napoleon's continental system, which forbade trade with England, undermined Russia's economy, and the Tsar was increasingly pressured to sever the strangling pact he had signed after the Battle of Friedland. In 1811, Tsar Alexander I supposedly allied with Napoleon. However, he refused to be part of the continental blockade of British goods any longer. Tensions quickly escalated. Every attempt to negotiate failed. By 1812, the relationship between France and Russia had greatly deteriorated, and both powers had begun preparing for war. Normally, the French army lived off the land. However, Napoleon had made extensive preparations, providing for the provisioning of his army. 17 supply battalions of 6,000 vehicles were to provide a 40-day supply for the Grand Army and its operations, and a large system of magazines was established in towns and cities in Poland and East Prussia. Berthier, Napoleon's chief of staff from 1796 until the abdication in 1814, was a principal actor in the logistics effort. Although not an accomplished independent commander, his energy, accuracy, and quick comprehension, combined with his long and varied experience and his complete mastery of every detail, which made him the ideal chief of staff. On June 24, 1812, ignoring the advice of his closest advisors, Napoleon invaded Russia. Never had so large an army ever been assembled. Italians, Poles, German, French, from every corner of his empire. Napoleon predicted the war would be over in 20 days. When Napoleon invaded Russia, he did so with an army of more than 500,000 men. Initially outnumbered, the Russians steadily retreated throughout the summer as attrition rapidly eroded the Grand Army. MacDonald's corps would move along the northern flank. While Napoleon had been in Egypt before, it was MacDonald who had been defeated in Italy by Suvorov. He was loyal and honorable. Although capable of independent command, MacDonald was no military genius. Napoleon moved with the main body. Spread out to his south were armies commanded by Eugene and Jerome. Napoleon's empire was a family affair. Eugene was Eugene Rose de Beauharnais, Josephine's son and Napoleon's stepson and one-time heir. Eugene would turn out to be a moderately capable leader and loyal to Napoleon. It would fall to Eugene to lead the remnants of the Grand Army out of Russia when Napoleon and Murat left the army as it was retreating. Jerome was Napoleon's younger brother. Jerome's performance would be subpar, and he never accomplished his orders at the speed Napoleon needed. In a snit, Jerome would leave his forces without a commander at a crucial part of the campaign. At the far flank, out of Galicia, were the Austrians under Schwarzenberg. The Russian armies, commanded by Barclay and Bagration, retreated without a fight. Tormazov threatened the southern flank, south of the Pripyat marshes. Barclay was the supreme commander of the First Army, the largest Russian army facing Napoleon and the Russian commander-in-chief. It was Barclay who proposed the scorched earth strategy that was crucial in the defeat of the Grand Army. However, Barclay was a German-speaking person of Scottish ancestry and seen as a foreigner by much of the Russian high command and people. He was continuously condemned as a coward for his Fabian tactics. Bagration commanded the Second Army of the West. He wanted to attack Napoleon before the French had even left Poland. If Bagration had been the commander-in-chief and not Barclay, then Napoleon would have gotten the early decisive battle he desired so much. Bagration died from wounds received at the Battle of Borodino. Napoleon's central group would cross 70 miles in 2 days. A significant problem was the expanding distances to supply magazines. No supply wagon could keep up with a forced-marched infantry column. Napoleon's army trudged slowly across Russia's vast open spaces. He hoped to annihilate his enemy quickly, but the Russians would not give battle. As the Tsar's armies retreated, they burned the countryside behind them, leaving the Cossacks to hack at Napoleon's rear and flanks, then gallop away. As the days passed, the blazing heat of the Russian summer began to take its toll. Soldiers fell out from exhaustion, sickness, and desertion, more than 5,000 a day. After 2 months, before Napoleon had fought even a single battle, 150,000 soldiers were out of action. A lot of these foreign troops just deserted. They weren't Frenchmen, they had no loyalty to Napoleon. They were only fighting because their king was allied to Napoleon for the moment. Unlike the German and Italian allies, the Polish soldiers, led at this time by Field Marshal Poniatowski, were loyal until the end. Even though Kutuzov had been one of the detractors of Barclay's scorched earth retreat, he continued this policy even after replacing Barclay as commander-in-chief. The only major battle ordered by Kutuzov in the 1812 campaign would be at Borodino. After that battle, he would limit attacks to raids and skirmishes as the Russians harassed the French. Kutuzov would fall ill and die in the spring of 1813. At last, with summer ending, the Russians turned and faced their enemy at the crossroads village of Borodino. It was the last chance to stop Napoleon before Moscow. Davout was undoubtedly Napoleon's best independent commander, and is a bit of a mystery as to why he was not given such a role in the invasion of Russia. He was the corps commander of the heart of Napoleon's invading army, the First Corps with over 70,000 men. But even this was a waste of his talents to command independently. It was Davout who suggested a flanking maneuver before Borodino, but was overridden by Napoleon, who wanted to attack with a frontal assault. The Battle of Borodino was a brutal slugfest. Napoleon threw his enormous army at the Russians in a frontal assault, showing little of his old strategic subtlety. Late in the morning, a bold attack by Marshal Murat's cavalry overwhelmed the Fletches, and around 2 p.m., a joint assault by infantry and cavalry finally seized the crucial Ravitsky redoubt. But lacking reinforcements, Prince Eugene de Beauharnais' men could not exploit their success. Joachim Murat was Napoleon's brother-in-law. He had been with Napoleon since 1796. After Napoleon left the army during the retreat, the command would fall to Murat before he too left. Although the Russian army was disorganized, Napoleon failed to launch a pursuit that might have destroyed it. Napoleon still had his guard in fairly fresh condition, but he refused to use them.